What if I told you that the most dangerous man in professional wrestling right now is not the champion, not the legend, not the man who has been doing this for 2 decades, but a 27-year-old Nigerian giant who has been on the main roster for barely 2 months. And he just walked up to Roman Reigns in a dark parking garage, looked him dead in the eyes, and said 4 words that stopped the entire wrestling world cold. Stay with me, because what happened this week on Monday Night Raw, and what happened after the cameras stopped rolling, is going to change everything you think you know about where WWE is headed, and I need you to hear every single word of this. Monday Night Raw opened like any other episode. The lights were blazing, the crowd was electric, the energy in that arena was everything you would expect from a WWE audience still riding the emotional wave of WrestleMania season. But then something happened that nobody in that building, nobody watching at home, and nobody in the wrestling industry was fully prepared for. Oba Femi walked to the center of that ring with the kind of calm, unhurried presence that only a man who truly believes he owns every room he walks into can project. He did not smile. He did not raise his arms to the crowd. He did not soak in the chants of his name echoing through the arena. He simply stood there, raised the microphone to his lips, and delivered 4 words that landed like a thunderclap across the entire wrestling landscape. Your ruler has arrived. And then he dropped the mic, turned around, and walked away as if he had just completed a transaction that the rest of the world would spend weeks trying to process. The arena fell into a stunned, disbelieving silence that said more than any roar of approval ever could. But here is the thing, here is what makes this story so much bigger than a cool in-ring moment. That was not the end of it, not even close. Because when the production trucks started packing up their equipment, when the arena lights dimmed and the crowd filed out into the night, Oba Femi was not done. He went looking for Roman Reigns, and he found him. In the parking garage, walking toward his SUV with Jimmy and Jey Uso flanking him on either side, Roman Reigns was exactly where Oba Femi expected him to be. The Bloodline was probably still buzzing from the high of WrestleMania, still feeling the warmth of Roman reclaiming the World Heavyweight Championship, still feeling invincible. And then, from the shadows at the edge of that parking garage, a figure emerged with no music, no camera crew, no entrance, just a man with a message. Oba Femi stepped directly into Roman's path, planting himself between the tribal chief and his vehicle like a wall that had decided it was done being scenery. The Usos immediately tensed. Jey Uso stepped forward, ready to do what he has always done, protect his cousin at all costs. But Roman raised a hand and pressed it flat against Jey's chest, stopping him right there. He wanted to hear what this man had to say. Oba Femi did not attack. He did not raise his voice. He did not make threats or deliver a speech. He just stood there in that cold, quiet parking garage with those utterly calm eyes locked onto the World Heavyweight Champion, and he said the same 4 words he had said in the ring just hours before. Your ruler has arrived. And Roman Reigns, the man who has made legends tap out, the man who has outlasted every challenger the wrestling world has thrown at him for years, the man who returned at WrestleMania to reclaim the most prestigious title in the company, Roman Reigns did not say a word back. He stared. The air between the 2 men apparently became so thick and so charged that everyone standing in that garage could feel it. And then Roman walked around Oba Femi, got into his SUV, and drove away. The Usos followed, but the footage tells a story their stone faces were trying to hide. They were rattled. These 2 men who have stood beside Roman Reigns through every war, every betrayal, and every impossible moment had just watched a man who 2 months ago was competing in NXT walk straight up to their tribal chief and refuse to blink. Now let me give you some context here, because if you are still catching up on everything that happened at WrestleMania 42 in Las Vegas, you need to understand the full weight of what Oba Femi just did. WrestleMania 42 will go down as one of the most loaded events in recent memory. Roman Reigns reclaiming the World Heavyweight Championship was a massive moment. Seth Rollins playing a complicated hand in helping his former brother was a talking point for days. CM Punk being humbled was the kind of storytelling that reminds you why professional wrestling at its best is genuinely compelling theater. But for me, the most seismic, the most ground-shifting moment of that entire weekend happened on night 2 when Oba Femi pinned Brock Lesnar clean, right in the center of the ring, and then stood over him as the beast lay there, and left his boots behind as a symbol of retirement. A 27-year-old man who has barely had time to learn the names of all his colleagues walked into WrestleMania and retired one of the most physically terrifying competitors in the history of professional wrestling. He powerbombed Brock Lesnar not once, not twice, but 3 times. He made Paul Heyman, a man who has been in this business long enough to have seen everything, look genuinely and visibly frightened. And then at the WrestleMania post-show, before the confetti had even finished falling, Oba Femi looked directly into the camera and called out Roman Reigns. Not Cody Rhodes, not Seth Rollins, the tribal chief himself. Here is what has been running through my mind all week, and I cannot shake it. Oba Femi has been on the main roster for barely 2 months. In that time, he eliminated 5 men at the Royal Rumble, he defeated Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, and now he is standing in parking garages face-to-face with the World Heavyweight Champion, delivering 4-word declarations of intent. He is not asking for a title shot through the proper channels. He is not cutting promos about earning his opportunity. He is not waiting in line. He is walking directly to the front and planting his flag, and he is doing it with the kind of composed, frightening certainty that suggests he is not surprised by any of this, because in his mind, this was always where he was going to end up. That is not ambition in the traditional sense. That is not the hunger of a young man trying to prove himself. That is a declaration of war delivered by someone who already considers the outcome settled. Roman Reigns is the World Heavyweight Champion. He is the head of the table. He is the man who just made CM Punk submit to his family's legacy and reclaimed a title that was always, in his mind, his to begin with. And yet, when Oba Femi confronted him in that parking garage, Roman Reigns walked away without a word. Now I want to be very clear about something, because I know some of you are going to read that as weakness or as Roman being caught off guard. I do not think that is what happened at all. Roman Reigns walking away in silence is not the move of a man who is scared. It is the move of a man who is calculating, a man who has been in this business long enough to know that responding emotionally to a threat is exactly what the threat wants you to do. Roman is cautious because Roman is smart. And he is cautious because somewhere in the back of that brilliant, calculating mind, Roman Reigns knows that Oba Femi is genuinely different from every other challenger he has ever faced. This is not Drew McIntyre. This is not Kevin Owens. This is not even Brock Lesnar. This is a former shot-put champion from Nigeria who has already proven on the grandest stage in wrestling that he can dismantle a legend and walk away without breaking a sweat. If he can retire Brock Lesnar, what exactly is going to stop him from standing over the tribal chief? The wrestling internet, as you would expect, has completely erupted. There are fans calling this the beginning of the greatest rivalry WWE has produced in years, a generational clash between the established king and the unstoppable force that refuses to wait its turn. There are others, more cautious voices, who argue that Oba Femi is moving too fast, that the smart play is to build his resume more carefully before going directly after the world title. And I understand that perspective completely, I really do. But here is what I genuinely believe after watching all of this unfold. Oba Femi understands something that takes most wrestlers an entire career to figure out. The moment is not something you wait for. The moment is something you create, and you create it by moving when the iron is at its absolute hottest. Right now, his iron is white hot. The wrestling world cannot stop talking about him. Every eye in the industry is pointed in his direction. And he is using that attention, that momentum, that undeniable heat to walk straight toward the biggest target available. Consider the landscape around Roman Reigns right now. The Usos are dealing with their own complications involving the vision and show speed, distractions that eat into the unity and focus that has always been the Bloodline's greatest strength. Paul Heyman is off running games with Gunther and Bron Breakker, which means Roman does not have his most trusted advisor locked in and fully focused. The Bloodline, for all its returned glory, is stretched thin, and Oba Femi sees all of that. He sees a champion whose foundation, while still formidable, has cracks in it, and he is walking directly toward those cracks with no hesitation and no wasted energy. He said 4 words on Monday Night Raw. He said them again in a dark parking garage with the champion standing 3 feet away from him. Roman Reigns had no answer, not yet, but the answer is coming. It has to. Because when a man who just retired Brock Lesnar walks up to you twice in the same night and delivers the same 4-word message, You cannot pretend that is not happening. You cannot ignore it. You cannot manage it from a distance. You can only eventually face it. And when Roman Reigns finally faces Oba Femi, whether that collision happens at SummerSlam or somewhere before the wrestling calendar even gets that far, it is going to be two titans meeting in the center of that ring with everything on the line. The tribal chief versus the ruler. The established dynasty versus the unstoppable future. The man who built the table versus the man who plans to break it. I genuinely do not know how this ends, and honestly, that uncertainty is what makes it so electric. So I want to hear from you. Do you think Oba Femi is ready right now to challenge Roman Reigns for the World Heavyweight Championship, or does he need more time to build his legacy before taking that leap? And when Roman finally decides to respond, how do you think the tribal chief is going to handle a man who has already proven he cannot be intimidated? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this conversation is just getting started. And if you want to be here for every single development as this rivalry builds, not just the headlines and not just the highlights, but the real story behind everything happening in the ring and behind the scenes, you already know what to do. Subscribe to Wrestling Juice, hit that bell so you never miss a video, and let us figure this out together. Because after everything that went down in that parking garage this week, I genuinely do not think any of us are ready for what is coming next. I will see you in the next one.